Hey everybody. This coming school year, like a lot of folks, I imagine that I'm going to be doing a lot of remote distance learning from my house. And I'm also taking some grad classes where there's going to be a lot of video conferencing involved. So for all those Zoom sessions and all those Google Meet sessions, I want an environment that looks a little bit more professional than the basement that I'm in. Behind this screen here, there's an elliptical machine and my oil tank for heat and all sorts of stuff. I want it to look a little nicer. That's why I created this screen. So the materials that it took to make this screen and the frame that it's on cost about $30, and I'm going to show you how you can make one too. Taking a closer look, you'll see that this screen is 6 feet tall and it is 5 feet wide. I used a piece of fabric from Walmart that covers about 4.5 feet of that frame that I made. And you'll notice that the frame is made entirely from PVC piping, very light and easy to put together. It should also be noted that I did everything here except for sewing the seams on the fabric. You can, my wife did it because she knows how to use her sewing machine. I do not, so she sewed along here. But you could do that with a hot glue gun as well if you would prefer. All right, let me give you a closer look at all the materials you'll need. It should end up costing you maybe $30 to build this. Here's everything that you need for this project. First and foremost, you're going to need 3 PVC pipes. These are 10 feet long, and these are 3/4 inch in diameter pipes. Home Depot sells these in 10-foot lengths. You will then have to cut them down to size. And this thickness makes them strong enough to hold the fabric up really nicely, but they're thin enough that they're not going to add too much weight. You will also need fabric. This fabric I picked up at Walmart. This is 54-inch width, and I got 2 yards of it. So that's going to end up giving you 4.5 feet in height and then 6 feet wide. And you'll need that little extra, even though the screen is going to end up being 5 feet wide. You'll need that extra foot to just wrap it around and sew it. You will also need some of these connectors here, again from Home Depot. These are all in the 3/4 inch section. You'll need these T's, 2 of those. And then these elbows, notice that these 2 are different from these 2. These 2 will fit on the ends of these PVC pipes, and I would test that in the store before you get it home and realize it's the wrong thing. These 2, this end will fit on the PVC pipe, and this end would fit inside of this T. All right, and I'll show you why that's important later. You will definitely need a tape measure and a marker. That'll mark where you're going to cut your PVC pipes. Pair of scissors. This stuff I used to put little feet on the screen, and I'll show you why I did that when we get there. You can use other things to kind of even out the bottom. I'll show you that later. And finally, I used a hacksaw to cut through the PVC pipe. Other saws can work. That's just what I happen to use for this project. The first thing we're going to do is make our 2 5-foot lengths of pipe. Since this is a 10-foot pipe, I can just cut this in half. So I measured with my tape measure from the end to the 5-foot mark, and I marked it with a marker, and then I'm just going to cut it through on that mark with my hacksaw. Now that I've cut my 2 5-foot lengths, it should be noted that the top bar actually is going to end up being a little bit longer than the bottom bar. The bottom bar is not going to be the full 5 feet because we are adding some of these little parts to it to add to the width. So we want to shorten what's going to be the bottom bar by another 2 inches. So I'm just going to measure 2 inches from the end of one of these and cut it off. So I just took off 2 inches from this bottom bar. So now the bottom bar is 4 feet 10 inches in length, and the top bar is going to be 5 feet in length. And the reason this is shorter is I need to put one of these guys on each end of that bottom bar, which I'll show you over here on the finished one. All right, so you can go ahead and attach those now, and then I'll tell you the next step. Now I've got my bottom bar all prepared. I've got my 5-foot top bar, and then I have these two 10-foot poles still remaining. I'm going to cut these pipes into 6-foot lengths. So I'm going to measure a 6-foot length from one and a 6-foot length from the other, mark it with my magic marker, and then I'm going to make those cuts. The 6-foot pipes that we just cut are going to be used for the side of our screen. So how do we have it come up out of the bottom? We are going to take these elbow joints, the ones that can fit inside the ends, and we're going to attach them here. And once that's on, we're going to take one of the 6-foot poles, a little tricky to do with one hand here. You can twist it back and forth a little bit as you push down to make sure it goes in all the way. And you're just going to repeat that for both sides of the bottom. Now, I'm going to recommend that you actually glue. The only joint that you really need to glue is this one here. I'm going to use PVC cement because I have it from a previous plumbing job. You could just use crazy glue if you want. So when you glue it, let me pull this back out. You're going to put the crazy glue like around the inside here, and you're also going to put it a little bit around here as well. And then you're going to want to slide it in all the way. And get this pole in here before it dries, because that's going to help you know if you have that thing in there nice and straight. So once I kind of get that pole in here, I can turn around and look and say, okay, yeah, there we go. Now, if you want to get fancy and use a level to make sure it's perfectly level, knock yourself out. Me, I just eyeballed it. Now that you've got the two sides in place, the next thing you need are the little feet that are going to come out from that T-joint. So if you take a look at the finished one, these are 6-inch lengths, and I just cut out 4 of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I cut those out from the leftovers from one of the 6-foot pipes. So just take one of those leftovers. It should be a 4-foot section. That's more than enough you need for 4 6-inch lengths, and then just slide them into the base. I've put the 4 feet on the ends of the bottom pipe now. One thing to note, you're going to have a little bit of wiggle because the pipe doesn't quite come to the ground, because you have to make up this little bit of difference from the diameter to this pipe. So I made that up by I had some extra little kind of furniture feet. I just stuck one on the bottom of each, and I wrapped it in some electrical tape to keep it on there, because it'll have a hard time sticking to a curved surface. And I just did one of those at the 4 corners. So any kind of furniture pad or anything that you want to put under there, even if you folded up an index card and taped that in place to make up that little bit of extra width, you're only looking at the difference in the diameter of these 2 pipes that you have to make up with it. All right, now we just have the last part of the frame. I'm going to take my final 5-foot piece, and I'm going to take the last 2 elbow pieces, and I'm going to slide them over the ends. And once they're connected to the ends, we just have to connect it across the top. All right, now it's time to finally add the fabric to our frame. So I laid the fabric down. Remember that it is 4.5 feet or 54 inches from there to there, and the width is 6 feet or 2 yards. So I laid it down underneath the frame, and up toward the top, I want to make sure that there's enough overlap that I can take this and fold it over this pipe. That way, if I sew or hot glue gun along here, it's basically going to make like a little sleeve that this top pipe can fit into. So I'm going to actually want to cut from here down to here, then from here over to here, from here to here, and from here to here. And with the magic of television, the cuts have been made. So those squares that I cut out are going to allow me to fold it down while leaving the corners exposed there. So once these sides are all kind of folded over nicely, you're going to end up gluing or sewing them in place, and then you will have your finished frame. And once again, here is the finished product. I think a screen like this looks an awful lot better than staring at my elliptical and oil tank. One last thing, when you sew your fabric together and you sew those ends, you're going to need to just disassemble the pipes that are on the side and along the top, and then slide them through, and then just stick them back in. That's one of the nice things about the fact that the only joint that's glued is this one. So you can disassemble this whole frame, you could take the sides out and take the top apart, and you could bring it somewhere or store it away until you need it. All right, thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful.